Boots move without rhythm along a narrow trail, soles pressing wet earth and lifting again. Cloth stays damp against skin, sleeves sticking at the elbows. No insects carry the air, even the leaves seem to pause. Each man keeps his eyes on the back ahead, distance held by habit, steps placed to avoid a scrape. The air feels held, unmoving, and the only sound is the faint shift of gear settling with each pace. George adjusts his grip and feels his jaw locked tight before he means to loosen it. Breath comes shallow, counted, then forgotten. He listens past the men, past the trail, for something that does not arrive. The quiet reaches him first, before his own breathing makes itself known. He steps, waits, steps again, telling himself not yet, and lets the line carry him forward. They listen for what isn't there. The line slows, then steadies again, boots easing down as if the ground might object. A twig snaps under someone's heel, a thin sound that hangs longer than it should, bouncing between leaves that overlap like shutters. No follow-on comes. The air pulls the sound inward and keeps it. Sweat cools unevenly along George's back, a chill forming where the cloth lifts and settles. He swallows and feels the motion ring in his head, louder than the step before it. His eyes tighten, pressure building just behind them, as if the quiet is pushing back. Muscles stay held too long, calves trembling without release. He waits for the jungle to reply, a cough of movement, a shift, anything to set a boundary. Nothing answers. He breathes through his nose, tastes damp air, and keeps moving with the men, wanting anything but this, as the silence closes in and stays. The path narrows without warning, green pressing closer on both sides, and George feels his breathing go shallow. His finger rests along the metal, not tightening, just there, following the line of it as if touch alone might steady the stretch of time. The patrol keeps its pace. No one signals. The air stays still, thin enough to feel drawn out. He lets himself picture the silence breaking. Not the details, only the release of it, the weight lifting for an instant. Waiting has begun to hurt in a way he can feel in his teeth and shoulders. The thought comes uninvited and settles. He notices it, the way he notices the damp at his collar or the ache starting in his calves, and he does not force it away. A breath slips out too fast. He corrects it, pulls the next one in through his nose, tastes what leaves an old earth. Nerves stay pulled tight, humming just under the skin. Time stretches thinner, each step longer than the last, the ground rising to meet his boot and falling away again. He thinks, end it, without sound, without heat. The line moves forward, unchanged, and he moves with it, carrying the thought alongside the silence as the trail bends on. Feet begin to land differently, toes testing before weight commits. Knees bend more than they need to, a quiet adjustment that spreads down the line. Mud clings longer to the soles now, tugging back as boots lift, and George feels his ankles stiffen with each step. He watches the men ahead shift their weight without turning, a lean corrected, a pause shortened, all done by feel. No one speaks. Gear settles, then stills. Boot prints behind them fill slowly with water, edges softening as they move on. The pace drags forward, not slower, just heavier. An early ache settles into George's calves and stays. He rolls his shoulders once, careful not to let the motion travel. Air moves across his neck, cool where sweat thins, warm again where cloth sticks. He matches the distance ahead, counting it without numbers. Keep pace, he tells himself, placing his foot where the last one was, letting the line pull him onward as the ground gives and takes in the same quiet rhythm. George stops looking up. The canopy slips away without a decision, replaced by the strip of ground ahead, the backs of men, the hands that swing and settle. His neck locks forward, chin set, and he feels it hold there. A frayed strap edge rubs his thumb raw where it hangs loose, the texture catching each time his hand shifts. He presses it flat once, then lets it be. Only the trail exists now. It pulls them on in a narrow line, a tunnel that admits nothing else. Peripheral shapes lose their pull and fade, as if the sides of the world have drawn inward. His focus hardens, useful and uncomfortable at the same time. Muscles along his shoulders tighten to keep his head steady. He watches the next step, then the next, breath brushing in and out of his nose. The word comes and stays, watch, as the line advances, compressed, carried forward by the same careful motion. Every sound he thinks he hears feels possible. A brush, a shift, a breath that might not be his. George pauses on each one, testing it against the stillness, then lets it go when nothing follows. The process repeats. Sweat runs into his eyes and stings, blurring the edges of the trail until he blinks it clear. Shadows stay fixed where they are, dark shapes that refuse to move. False starts build in his hearing, little lifts of attention that fall back down empty. A dull pressure gathers at his temples, the beginning of a headache that settles in and stays. He feels the effort it takes to sort each sound, to decide and discard, and he knows it is costing him something he won't get back. His jaw tightens again. Again? The thought slips through as he steps forward, the line carrying on, the jungle unchanged, while a small measure of ease drains away and does not return. George's shoulders rise without his say, webbing biting a little deeper where it crosses his collarbones. He notices it only when the pressure turns sharp, then lets the straps settle without fully dropping them. His breaths shorten again, shallow pulls that stop before his chest wants them to. The air feels thinner here, pressed flat by the growth closing in. Overgrowth brushes his arms as they pass, leaves slick and cool against his skin. The men ahead seem closer than before, the gap reduced by inches that matter. Space compresses, not visibly, but by feel, as if the line has been drawn tight from both ends. His chest tightens to match it, holding more than it releases. He adjusts his step to avoid a root, boot sliding, catching. Tension stacks quietly, layer on layer. Hold, he tells himself, keeping his eyes forward as the patrol eases through the narrowing path and carries the weight with it. The jungle feels closer than it should. George blinks as sweat blurs his vision, smearing the green into a single plane. Depth flattens, near and far losing their order, and the space ahead misjudges itself. He lifts his foot higher than needed, sets it down carefully, then checks the distance to the man in front again. It looks shorter. He shifts his pace to match, then doubts the adjustment. His eyes ache from holding focus too long, strains settling behind them as he tries to measure what won't stay measured. Leaves hang at the same reach no matter how he leans. A branch brushes his sleeve when he thought he had cleared it. He recalculates once more, then lets the numbers fall apart. Nothing confirms him, no sound, no movement, no correction from the line. Too close, he thinks, easing his shoulders back a fraction and stepping on, unsure if the space has changed or if he has. Silence stays fixed around the patrol, a sealed space that will not open. He shifts his weight and the small sound of fabric moving seems too loud. His fingers tighten on the grip without permission, then loosen, then tighten again. The weapon stays angled forward and used, balanced by habit. Air moves across his face, damp and warm, carrying the smell of rot and wet leaves. The stillness presses inward, not empty but crowded, asking for something to happen. The thought comes whole, not argued into place. Noise would end this. Noise would draw a line where none exists. He feels it in his hands first, a faint tingling that runs into his wrists, nerves stretched thin from holding steady too long. The idea does not shock him. It sits there, heavy and plain. He notices that he does not push it away. His shoulders drop a fraction, just enough to feel it. The pressure inside him shifts, looking for release. He adjusts his footing to keep balance, eyes still forward, breath measured. The jungle remains quiet. The weapons remain ready. Inside, the waiting has taken on a different shape, and he moves with it, step by careful step. Sweat breaks loose along his forehead and slides into his eyes. He blinks hard, keeps his head steady, wipes nothing away. The figures ahead remain still, backs rigid, rifles held the same as before. Air hangs close and wet. No sound comes to meet them. The tension does not move, does not ease. The thought is there again, unchanged. He takes it as a fact, like the weight of the pack or the ache in his calves. There is no reason attached to it, no argument running underneath. Only the need for something to interrupt the stretch of nothing. His eyes burn in water, focus blurring for a second before he forces it back. He draws a slow breath through his nose, tastes damp leaves, shifts his grip to keep control. Silence presses harder than any imagined danger. He stays in line, moving forward, carrying the thought without answering it. Silence holds as the path narrows, brush closing in. His uniform clings to his back, damp, and he rolls his shoulders once to loosen them. The patrol stays quiet. Boots placed carefully. No signal passes. He feels the shift before he names it. The balance inside him tips, slight but final. His shoulders stay tight, restraint thin from hours of holding. He keeps his eyes forward, adjusts his strap, steadies the weapon without lifting it. The thought settles with weight, unfamiliar and firm. I did not think this before. It does not ask permission. It stays as he steps again, moving with the line, carrying the change without sound. Air presses close as leaves brush his sleeves. His feet begin to cramp as they move, toes curling inside damp boots, then flattening again with each step. He adjusts his pace without stopping. The ground rises and falls in small measures that repeat. Green presses in from all sides, the same leaves, the same trunks, appearing again as if they never left. Air drifts past his face slowly, thick and warm, carrying no change. Minutes stop separating themselves. He tries once to count, then lets it go. The effort slips away into a dull ache spreading up from his feet into his legs. His body keeps track of distance by feel alone, weight shifting, balance correcting. The mind lags behind, wrapped in fog that softens edges and dulls sequence. He blinks and steadies his breathing, listening for something new. Nothing arrives. He steps over a root, then another, hand brushing his thigh to steady himself. Sweat runs down his sides, cool for a moment before warmth returns. Time offers no help. It neither passes cleanly nor stops. The question forms without answer, how long has this been, and fades as his foot lifts again. The patrol drifts forward, slow and unchanged, carrying him with it. Mud grips at his boots and lets go in short pulls. He feels it more than he sees it. His eyes stay on the ground just ahead, tracing roots, dark patches, shallow dips. Each step lands, lifts, lands again without pause. The motion settles into something steady and unremarked. His legs feel heavy, weight pressing down from the hips. Thought thins out, leaving only simple signals. Balance. Pressure. The next place to put his foot. He no longer shapes a plan. He follows the movement already underway. The jungle floor fills his vision, close and narrow, blocking everything else. Breathing finds a rhythm on its own. He adjusts his stride when the ground softens, tightens it when roots crowd in. Awareness stays low and practical. A small phrase runs once through his head, left, then right, and disappears. The patrol keeps moving. He moves with it, guided by the ground, not by time. Sweat gathers at his chin and drops away as he moves, darkening the dirt below. His feet pick their way through roots without instruction, toes lifting just enough, heels setting down carefully. Sound narrows to breath and the soft contact of boot on ground. Nothing else reaches him. Air feels thick, unmoving, pressed close to his face. Thought no longer arranges itself into sentences. Signals replace it. The burn in his thighs. The shift of balance when the ground tilts. The line of direction set by the man ahead. Everything outside that tight channel fades. His legs work on their own, muscles warming to pain, then passing through it. The mind shuts down what it cannot carry. He leans forward slightly, catches himself, corrects. A single word surfaces and vanishes, step. The patrol continues, and he stays inside the motion, narrow and sufficient, moving on without looking up. The jungle presses in until it feels nearer than before. Leaves brush his arms as he passes, their wet edges dragging lightly across his sleeves. His skin prickles where they touch, a thin, crawling sensation that does not fade. Air seems to thicken, closing the space around him. The distance ahead shortens, as if the path has folded in on itself. His heartbeat quickens without warning. He feels it in his chest, then in his throat, a steady thump that refuses to slow. Nothing has changed in front of him. The line moves as it has been moving. Still, his body tightens, shoulders rising, breath drawn shallower. He does not search for a reason. The sense of presence arrives whole, without detail. Not seen, not heard. Just there. He adjusts his grip, thumb pressing into worn metal, and shifts his weight to stay quiet. The vegetation brushes closer now, closing gaps he thought were wider. His mind comes after the reaction, late and spare. They are close. He keeps his eyes forward, stepping carefully as the space around him continues to shrink. Cold sweat breaks across his back and along his ribs, cooling the skin beneath his shirt. The space ahead remains empty. No movement shows itself. The path holds steady, unchanged, a narrow strip of ground leading forward. Air presses in without weight, an invisible force that does not ease. Inside, everything tightens at once. His stomach turns, a slow roll that he holds down by breathing through it. Muscles draw in and stay there, waiting. He does not look for proof. He does not listen harder. The feeling stands on its own and asks nothing further. He swallows and keeps his head level, fingers firm around the grip. The line advances by inches. Nothing appears. The pressure remains. A single thought forms and stays small, not yet. He moves with it, holding tension as the jungle offers no sign and no relief. His grip tightens until his fingers begin to numb, pressure steady and deliberate. He stops trusting what his eyes tell him. The edges of his vision blur, details falling away as he moves. The ground still passes under his feet, but he no longer checks it as closely. His body makes the small decisions first, shifts weight, shortens a step, angles his shoulders without instruction. The mind trails behind, catching up only after the movement is done. He accepts this without comment. Alertness sharpens and stays fixed, a constant pull that does not relax. He adjusts his stance again, breathing shallow, listening without searching. Instinct carries him forward, quiet and precise. A single word holds him in place as he moves, hold, and he follows it, keeping pace as the line advances into the narrow space ahead. His muscles lock as if braced against a blow that has not landed. He fixes his gaze ahead, not searching, just holding it steady on the narrow strip of space where the path disappears. Air moves in shallow pulls through his nose, damp and warm, but he holds his breath too long without noticing. The feeling of imminence settles over him, close and unavoidable, like a hand resting on his shoulder. He prepares for sound, not for what it will be, but for what it will do. His body leans into readiness without a clear plan. Shoulders tense, knees flex slightly, jaw tightens. He shifts his weight forward, then stills it, as if any motion might bring the moment closer. Strain spreads across his back and down his arms, held there by effort alone. The body rehearses damage in quiet ways. A flinch checked before it happens. A tightening meant to absorb force. He does not picture the result. He only braces, breath shallow, grip steady, eyes forward. The thought arrives and stays simple: be ready. He holds that position as the patrol moves, carrying the expectation with him into the next step. His mouth dries as he breathes through it, tongue thick, throat tight. The patrol line ahead stays fixed, spacing unchanged, bodies held in the same careful positions. Nothing moves faster. Nothing slows. The air feels narrow, drawn tight around the moment before contact. Emotion pulls back without effort. What remains is small and practical. He measures nothing beyond the next instant. There is no room for what comes after, no shape to it. His chest feels hollow, as if something has been set aside to make space. He swallows once, keeps his head level, eyes steady. The anticipation sharpens and holds. Calculation stays minimal, just enough to stand and absorb. He does not picture outcomes. Only impact. A brief phrase passes through him and settles, just the first second. He stays with it as the line advances, carrying less of himself forward than before. Sweat cools suddenly on his skin as a thin breeze passes, raising a chill along his arms. The jungle seems to pause in front of him, every shape held in attention, leaves and shadows fixed in place. Sound drops away until only his breath remains, shallow and controlled. The world narrows to what is directly ahead. There is no later. The idea does not form and then fade, it simply never arrives. His head feels light, balance checked and rechecked with each step. Planning has collapsed into something simpler. Stand. Hold. Move when the line moves. Endurance takes the place of intent without discussion. He blinks once, steadies himself, and leans forward slightly to keep pace. Thought compresses to a single point, sharp and brief. Now. He carries it with him as the patrol advances, staying inside the instant as the jungle remains suspended around them. His jaw loosens without him noticing, teeth separating as a slow breath leaves his mouth. The weapon stays steady in his hands, weight familiar, balanced. Air hangs heavy around him, but the tension inside shifts, sliding toward an opening. He imagines the first sound again, not fighting the image this time. It arrives clean and complete. The idea carries relief. He feels it as a slight easing in his chest, a release from the tight hold he has kept for too long. Nerves lie stretched and tired, humming just under the skin. He does not question the response. He lets it exist. The thought settles where the strain has been building. His shoulders drop a fraction, then hold. He adjusts his grip to keep control, fingers steady despite the fatigue. The jungle remains quiet, unchanged. Still, the realization stays with him, heavy and calm at once. It would end this. He moves forward with the line, carrying the thought as the pressure inside him continues to look for a way out. Sweat dries unevenly across his back, leaving cool patches that pull at the skin when he shifts. The spacing of the patrol stays the same, each figure held in place, moving as one without signal. Nothing outward has changed. The imbalance remains quiet, settled just under the surface. He does not argue with himself. The feeling stands on its own, without cause or defense. Silence has taken more than he expected, and the body registers it plainly. A brief easing passes through him, tension loosening for a moment before it steadies again. He adjusts his stance to keep balance, alert without urgency. Resignation replaces resistance. He accepts the state he is in and moves with it, breath measured, eyes forward. The thought forms small and final, enough. He carries it as the line advances, the quiet still present, the agreement already made. His hands stay steady on the grip, no tremor now, pressure even. The jungle ahead does not change. The same leaves, the same narrow corridor, the same quiet holding its shape. Air rests against his face, warm and damp, offering nothing new. Inside, something settles and stops moving. There is no judgment attached to what comes next. No weighing. No refusal. Only sequence. Waiting, then noise. The order feels fixed, like steps already laid out. Calm comes with it, edged by fatigue that dulls the sharpness of earlier tension. Emotion flattens, smoothing what remains. He breathes out slowly and keeps pace, boots landing without hurry. The internal shift holds. He accepts it without ceremony, carrying less resistance than before. A final thought forms and stays light, let it come, as the patrol moves on through the unchanged green. His chest expands in short, shallow pulls, breath finding its own pattern without instruction. He leans forward with the line, a slight angle that matches the men ahead, weight already committed. The stillness before action settles around them, dense but quiet, holding every small movement in place. He does not correct his posture. The body has already done that work. Readiness moves through him without thought. Knees stay loose. Shoulders set. Hands maintain their position with practiced ease. Fatigue hums underneath it all, but the response feels trained, familiar, carried out by parts of him that no longer wait for direction. He notices this only after it happens, the way one notices breathing after a long climb. The mind steps back and watches. It does not lead. It follows what is already underway, noting the adjustments as they occur. A slight shift of balance. A steadier grip. Air drawn in and let out at the right moments. The realization arrives without wait or surprise, this is happening. He stays with the movement as the patrol advances, letting the body keep its quiet control into the next stretch of ground. His shoulders relax for a brief second, dropping under the weight of the pack, then settle again. The patrol seems frozen mid-step, each man caught in the same forward lean. Readiness coils and holds, quiet and contained. He stops trying to manage it. The effort drains away on its own. Reaction becomes enough. He no longer checks himself for signs, no longer tightens what is already set. Strain eases just enough to feel the difference, a small reduction that lets him breathe more evenly. Fatigue remains, but it works efficiently now, spent only where needed. He shifts his feet to keep balance, conserving energy without thinking about it. Hands stay steady. Eyes remain forward. Nothing more is asked of him. A single word passes through and stays, ready. He carries it as the line begins to move again, the coiled stillness traveling with him into the next step. His fingers rest on the grip without tightening, pressure even, no longer searching for adjustment. The jungle ahead holds its shape, still and unchanged, a fixed frame of leaves and shadow. Silence remains where it has been, unbroken. Inside, something settles into place and does not move again. There is no return to anticipation. The waiting phase has closed without ceremony. What remains is response, quiet and immediate, ready to rise without warning. His body holds a neutral state, neither tense nor loose, tension adapted to fit the moment. He stands in it without effort. He shifts his weight once to stay balanced, breath steady, eyes forward. Fatigue stays present but contained, no longer pulling at him. The internal resolution holds firm. A brief thought surfaces, sharp and plain, now or not. He carries it forward as the patrol advances, silence still intact around him. The sound he is prepared for does not come. His calves begin to quiver as he holds his stance, the fine shaking hidden inside the muscles. Foliage ahead appears frozen, leaves suspended as if pinned in place. He keeps his breath held longer than he should, then lets it out in a thin stream, careful not to make it audible. The air feels tight around his face. His body stays ready despite the delay. Muscles remain set, carrying the strain without complaint, though the effort deepens. Time slips back into stillness, thick and unmoving. Each second stretches without marking itself. He feels a tremor build, not enough to force change, but enough to be noticed. He adjusts his footing by a fraction, enough to keep balance, not enough to signal movement. Sweat cools along his legs, then warms again as the effort continues. Nothing breaks the quiet. The thought surfaces and stays simple, still nothing. He remains in place, holding readiness as the moment refuses to resolve. Sweat drips steadily from his hairline and down his neck, soaking into the collar of his shirt. His vision narrows to a short tunnel ahead, edges fading as he keeps his focus tight. Pressure builds without finding a way out, pressing inward and staying there. The moment stretches past what feels reasonable. Relief does not arrive. The body takes on the cost instead, muscles tiring as they remain set. Fatigue creeps in along his thighs and lower back, a slow burn that does not force release. Control does not come back. He no longer tries to reclaim it. He shifts his weight carefully, just enough to keep standing. Endurance thins, drawn out over time, but it holds. Breath moves shallow and measured. A single thought repeats, quiet and insistent, hold longer. He stays in place, carrying the strain as the silence continues. His joints begin to ache, a deep soreness settling into knees and hips as he moves. The terrain does not change. The same ground passes beneath him, the same narrow stretch of jungle repeating without variation. Energy drains slowly, not in sharp pulls, but in a steady loss he can feel spreading. Weakness creeps in at the edges of his strength. He notices it without alarm. There is nothing to adjust, no position that would ease it. The body continues because it must. Fatigue sits close to exhaustion now, heavy but contained, pressing down with each step. He rolls his shoulders once and keeps pace, breath shallow, eyes fixed ahead. The patrol does not pause. It carries on through the unchanged green. A thought surfaces and stays brief, not much left. He moves with it, continuing forward as the slow drain deepens and the silence holds. The patrol keeps moving, silence unbroken. His uniform feels heavier now, fabric pulling at his shoulders and back as if it has taken on weight of its own. Each step presses it closer to his skin. Behind him, the jungle closes in, leaves and branches settling back into place, erasing the line they have passed through. Nothing marks their movement except the effort in his legs. Nothing resolves. No sound arrives to end the waiting. The body continues under its own momentum, carrying fatigue deep into the muscles. Tension no longer spikes or eases, it has changed shape and settled in, constant and familiar. He adjusts the strap across his chest and keeps going, breath shallow, pace steady. The suspension holds as they move forward, stretched out and unfinished. He feels the changes inside him clearly now, not as something happening, but as something already done. They move with him, carried step by step through the quiet. A thought settles and does not leave, this stays with me, as the patrol advances and the jungle takes them in again. His skin feels sensitive beneath the damp fabric, every brush of cloth registering more than it should. The path ahead stays unseen, hidden by the bend and the growth, offering no shape to what comes next. Air moves quietly around him, carrying the muted smell of wet earth and leaves. The patrol advances without sound. He understands the change without needing to examine it. The waiting has worked its way into him, not through action, but through the long stretch of holding. Residual tension stays in his shoulders and neck, a low pull that does not release. Fatigue shows itself as wear rather than pain, something spread thin over time. There is no moment to mark it. No shift in pace. He adjusts his step to avoid a route and keeps moving. The silence trails behind them, settled and complete. A simple thought forms and stays, "I know this now," as he continues forward, carrying the imprint without display. The jungle does not speak. His boots lift and set down again, soles peeling softly from the ground before finding it once more. The path behind them disappears as they pass, leaves easing back into place, closing what they leave behind. Air stays damp and close, moving only when they do. Nothing marks the moment. He keeps his movement controlled, pace measured, each step placed without haste. Strain endures in his legs and lower back, familiar now, carried rather than resisted. He does not look for sound. He does not wait for it here. The patrol moves on as it has been, forward and quiet. Silence remains where it belongs, unbroken and unresolved. The waiting does not end, it simply shifts, carried into the next stretch of ground. A final thought stays small and functional: keep moving, and he does, leaving the closed path behind as the quiet continues elsewhere.